Good morning to everyone who watches us, and thank you to our speakers that you come here. And we continue our discussion of the state budget 2017, what changes to expect in public schools funding. I would like to ask you today to be brief and to explain the changes, potential changes, because someone will be responsible for this. And so what changes we can expect for public authorities, for school directors? We are not expected that someone will come soon and tell that everything will be absolutely in the other way. We should know what to expect. That is why, in a very operative manner, we will tell in 3 minutes for every panelist to tell about the changes, what will change for teachers, for children, for public authorities. We are talking only about secondary schools because education, this is a topic to which we can devote the whole day. What should we expect? What school children should expect next year in the scope of the plan of the Ministry of Education and national budget? I would like to start with the public authorities. You know, the key task of the government is to ensure access and quality of education. These are the key criteria. We have many questions to them, but this is more the Ministry of Education policy matter. We believe that in the education sector, competition should also be present. Children should learn, should study in a competitive environment where they can grow. This is the first criterion. And we believe it necessary to develop a basic schools project, systematization of the existing network as concerned the quality of education. That is the matter of how teachers will be able to provide the knowledge of the relevant quality in the modern world. This question has not been addressed during previous years, so the quality fell to zero. We should be proud of our teachers, but unfortunately, you know, teachers' profession is not now relevantly paid for, is not teachers are just enthusiasts now who like their profession, but they are not motivated to work well. So the government's task is to provide salaries, to provide advanced education for teachers, advanced training, and launching new ideas so that students at teachers training colleges and universities, they are devoted to their profession, and the Ministry of Finance sees this problem, and we can't say that everything is okay. We can say that there are problems and let's resolve them together, finding complex, maybe complicated decisions. We're talking about competition, what you are talking about. Children can choose teachers or schools, what? Yes, choosing schools, this is more about access to schools. Competition means more how many children of the same quality of knowledge study in the same form. We shouldn't have 30 or 40 children in one form. For example, in the city of Kiev, competitive environment should be present in every form. Whether it is real in the system which we have now. I would like to tell you three commands. Along with the Ministry of Finance, the Ministry of Education distributes subventions for education according to the law. This is the power of the Ministry of Education, but indeed we don't have such possibilities. We do not have income portion. So the Ministry of Finance knows figures better. We should work together in order to fund our schools and our education sector. So our views may be different. We want more funds as any sectors, but the Ministry of Finance, this is its task to put some restrictions and limits to balance different sectors funding. So the next question is quality and access, and the issue which the Ministry of Finance should pay attention to, how effective the funds are used, what people can expect. The changes this year will be even fundamental, cardinal. 33% will be the rise in salaries of teachers. This is not a very dramatic step, but in at least tariffs schedule will provide teachers to levels higher salaries. For some reason, teachers were put two lines lower, so we should now restore the justice in this question. The secondary schools education, Parliament said that higher school, this will be divided for getting education. Subventions will be provided, 0.8 billion funding. The system of vocational schools was self-funded mostly last year. There were no incomes in vocational schools. We tried to help them with some money, but this year the funding will be provided to vocational schools. This is positive issue. As concerns the 9-year school children, the first and second level of accreditation schools, this is the last year when they are funded from the national budget. So we have here some money, and textbooks will be funded for 9 years pupils. What risks we have? The increase in salaries by 33% will be partly from local budgets because of decentralization. Local authorities' portion is increased in some cities very high, and in some towns or depressive regions this portion is not to grow, but in total the local authorities' portion of funding is really in place. So This is approved. The Ministry of Education support this approach. The subventions for education sector should be provided only for education, while maintenance of schools, this is the task of local authorities. What is the subvention for educational sector? This is salaries, textbooks, and I hope there will be some money for equipment and learning environment. We have certain plans, and the Ministry of Finance shares our views, so that they are funded from the national budget, and also accreditation of teachers will be funded, will be invested by the national budget. We need this this funding for teachers for the advanced training and retraining. We have not agreed completely on this point. Where we see risks along with the Ministry of Finance, the Ministry of Finance may see the risks better. The risks are when we will pay with this subvention only salaries of educational personnel. We have threats that other auxiliary personnel will not be paid, and also what will be with the boarding schools, how they will be funded, we don't understand. So specialized boarding schools, they had resources, and now there will be only salaries, and the heads of those schools, they say that they are afraid of where they will get money for maintenance, and also payment of utilities bills. Utilities bills will grow significantly. We have some time to work together with the Ministry of Finance to find the formula, because we don't agree completely, and at the same time the Ministry of Finance is not in agreement with us. So we work together to better the formula. 14 billions are budgeted, almost 15 billions for the leveling fund. We will use it in the fourth quarter 2017 together with the Ministry of Finance. What does it mean, the leveling fund? Well, I know you should go. Let's give the floor to our experts. We provided, we allocated, understand that there are budgets which are underfunded, especially in districts and regions. We provided special dotation, special subsidy in the amount of almost 15 billions. We understand that without these funds we can't pass well the year of 2017. The community, they will be strengthened. We have this process ongoing, and after that the local authorities will be able to finance. I have one question. Have you calculated the proceeds for utilities bills? The utilities bills will be paid in full in all budgeted sectors. Now let's give the floor to our experts. Anyway, we focused on funding and decentralization.
Yes, I agree with what was said here about the problems we may face. I would like to draw your attention to the fact that we are speaking about the increase of financing on education, and if we look at in overall terms, those figures that were presented, they are lower than the rate of inflation that is forecast for this year. So there is some concern. Also, there are risks connected with the level of community earnings. They are of different level. And also the salary for teachers and for the staff, and also about material support, for example, laboratory equipment, and the program that was started to renew the material base of schools, especially physics laboratories, because without this, we won't get quality education. And I would like to say that the answer about the increase in quality, there is a risk that this quality will deteriorate, not because of our actions, but because there is a restructuring, the transfer from one mechanism of financing to another, an introduction of the law. And usually, when these changes happen, something can improve and something can not be improved. So also there is a program New School, and now they can show some positive results of reforms, but the structural reform will raise many problems, and we should be ready for this. I have a specifying question before giving the word to another speaker, whether this reform will bring people closer to each other. Of course, but there will be a period when someone is already not responsible, and someone have had not time to take this responsibility on himself. I would like to say that the Ministry of Finance and the Ministry of Education have many things in common, but in this dialogue, what is lacking is local centers, local power, local communities, because repeatedly, and everyone heard of this, there is unpredictable risk that depend on local government. And here we are approaching such a thing that the goals are good and the instruments that are used are good, but the realization is not so good, because there is no synchronization, there are different expectations of different stakeholders. I have concerns about the understanding, whether local government understand their responsibilities, and the central government hopes that this financial stimulus, that they now get this they should support communal services and provide salaries for the staff, so there can be some breach, some gap in expectations. So central government said you should do it, and the local government says that they are not able to do it because they haven't done this before. And what we see in other states that underwent through optimization of the school system, for example, there should be a central office of this long-term reform and consultative centers that would advise to local government how to communicate, how to fire personnel properly. So these are long-term things. So we have two mechanisms now. This is financial provision of finances to base schools, and we do not know whether this mechanism really works. And so maybe there were some renaming of schools and base schools, but no changes were introduced. And there is also some punishment. So if they say that from central government they get salaries, and the teachers get salaries, and everything else is supported by local government. So it is difficult to bring it to the level of the country. We do not know what will be the policy in this sphere. So the question is simple. The most important stakeholder in this process are parents, because for parents it is always important. So whom should they address with recommendations, requirements? What can they do? Not just say that everything is bad. What can they do in order to be convinced that director and authorities did everything possible in this situation? Before answering the question, I would like to make several comments on Yegor's address. So, about base schools, these are one of priorities of the government, and this is the priority of the Ministry of Education and the Regional Development and Construction, because these are local bodies involved, and we paid a lot of attention to this issue, and we have 137 base schools, and also only 20 they in the United Territorial Communities. But in my opinion, and in the opinion of those who envisaged these provisions, we believe that the schools should be in territorial communities, because we need horizontal, not vertical links. So there should be a responsibility of the community of schools, and the schools should develop not only students but also the community. So this is lifelong learning, and they should teach people about entrepreneurship and other skills. So there should be also a reverse process, and here in Kiev, when we look at figures and correlation of the ratio of teacher and students, we don't see people with their problems. And when we are speaking about firing of people, and then this decision is made by the head of the territorial community, he knows that we have to fire this person, but she is without husband, and then she will be just hungry because of this firing. So this is an ethics thing, and these are very painful processes, and the proponents of this processes are only parents. And what you said, what the parents should do, the parents should understand that, because they choose security and self-realization of their child, and parents, maybe they choose the issue of security. They believe that if the school is not good, but the transportation is the risk, and we cannot say that it is not. And there should be a request for quality education, and parents should understand that in order that the child was competitive, the child should get properly educated and they need proper start and good education. Then the situation will be better. And together with the journalists, we should work that people should understand that quality of education is the future of our society. Thank you. Do you have comments? Ksenia Barvinenko. First City channel, Gadesa Krivory. Question to Mr. Marchenko. You said that the money is in the budget and they are allocated for the development of education in schools. And during the last press conference, one of the deputy ministers of education, Mr. Striha, said that there is no money for books. And he said that some manuals, some books should cost some money to those people who can really pay for them. Is it really necessary, and what we should do with the books that are lacking? Do we have funding for this? I can say about the figures that are envisaged in the budget of 2017, 400 million hryvnias are envisaged for this, and this money is enough in order to buy books for the school system. So we are discussing this issue, but there is a decision of Constitutional Court that brings the decision that the manual should be free of charge. And you know that for vulnerable categories, these books were free, and others paid, and 20% were compensated for those who paid. And this decision was reviewed by the Constitutional Court, and the Constitutional Court made a verdict that books should be free of charge. I would like to add. So when I studied, we paid for the books, and when Soviet government tried to introduce free of charge manuals, free of charge books that should be in the libraries. Many people were against this because if you paid for this book, you can have it at home. You can take it anytime you need. And now there is internet, but then we didn't have internet. So there should be the right of people to buy a book and to get it free of charge. They should have a choice in this. One more question to Mr. Khobzey. Now, in what classes do they don't have these books, and in what way they provide these books to schools? There is a known problem. The manuals for 4th and 7th grade, because last year money were not allocated last year, then they provided 50%, and then local government had to add some money, and we brought 50%. This is one book for 2 students, and we provided part of subventions. 8 million were provided from the state budget for these purposes. What was the problem? The problem was that the publishing houses they published the 9th grade, and now this is the issue of the oblast. We financed this and did it in time, and the publishing houses dealt with the Ministry of Education. And when we are speaking about 4th and 7th grade, they are dealing with the cities, the regions, and the schools. So this process is complicated, and this process was delayed when they published the books for 8th grade. They were not able to publish books for 4th and 7th grade, and part of the oblasts they published these books for 4th and 7th grade, and the number of students in the cities increase, and the number of students in the villages decrease, and the manuals are for 5 years, and the rise of migration, and also the rise of birth rate, so there will be a bigger need for these books. So we should count properly, and if these books are not used, so the books should be provided in the places they are really needed. But this work is ongoing, and there's no so this year they started to speak again about 12 year of education at school. And do we have enough funds to publish books for this kind of school? And are they going to start the system? In the draft law that was adopted in the first reading, there is a 12-year school, and I'm a proponent and of the CEDOS. I believe this is right, but I should note that there will be some provisions that will be changed. This is the position of the minister, Lilia Grinevich, that this will be started in 2012. These changes will be in the 2018, and then they will have the 13th grade, and it will need additional financing, and this will be 2021. And I would like to go back to the topic of the discussion, and the question is, the system you were speaking about, the subvention is provided to the region, then there the local government will deal with it more. Who will theoretically win because of this? How it can be used to the benefit, and who will lose, in order to understand discussion that will be going. So maybe this is a dissonance, but this is not the correct question. There won't be any losers, and this is the main principle. This distribution of subventions that should be done in the way that everyone wins. Of course, we understand that we should shorten this network, and there should be proper instruments, but the subvention, it can be allocated in such a way that someone will be lacking. Because of these imbalances and lacking, it results in low quality. So if people say they are lacking, they are just not orienting properly in the situation. I would like to say several words. You understand that the subvention in 2017, it differs from the subvention of 2016 because there is a component of salaries, of teachers' salaries, and to minimize the risks and possible concerns of society. So we provide funds for salaries, and in order to minimize the risks, for us it is important to calculate properly in order to provide that the teachers would get a rise of the salary that is envisaged in the budget, and they should be able to work, because if we distribute it fairly, and we discussed it with the Ministry of Education and Science, then we would have to study the ratio between teachers and students, and to see that in some regions there is in some regions the salaries rose, and in some salaries fell, and there would be many losers. And this leveling that we propose in 2017, it will be only in 2017, and this is a transitional model. And we need to propose transitional model, because if we propose fair model, as they call it, there will be many who will discredit the idea of providing the service locally, and they would say that we violated some basic principles of because the formula that exists now, it envisages territorial differences, and it cements the situation that was accumulated in these 25 years. And I will give you a simple example. If in my village the People's Deputy was born, and miraculously he decided to build a school not for 100 students but for 500, and he built the school, at this moment the state would support the school, and they would provide funds for 500 student school. And there are many examples like this. These are thousands of examples, and we say that we won't tolerate it, and local government should think where and why they build and whether they really need it. And we cannot support your network that you created in these years, so that these times are over. So there should be a rational use of funding, and I believe that this step is correct if we want to develop, not cementing this situation. I would like to say that ideologically the approach is correct, and the ministers agree with this idea and about the subvention, and also we cannot in a short period of time, because this ideology came at the end of summer, and we cannot provide now these calculations, and we agreed with the Minister of Finances to lower the risks. The formula is simple, the salaries, and now we are speaking about what should be taken as a basis. They, if you do not optimize this, you won, and if you didn't, you lose. So it can't be like this. So we should calculate per student or per class, because this is an instrument that should stimulate some processes, and we should lift the risks and raise the salaries. Our task is to raise salaries of teachers, and maybe it will cost a lot, and that's why we need this leveling, but our main goal is for this year is like this. So Vladimir.
I would like to add, I agree with Yegor that we should not tell that someone will win, someone will lose. We should have win-win situation. We should find the mechanisms. On the second, I would like to add to the approaches related to distribution, to the mechanisms of funding proposed now. In general, we agree with it, but I would not advise to make them universal and equal for everyone. There should be some cases excluded, such as physics and mathematical lyceum at the Shevchenko University. Can it be managed and maintained as ordinary schools? No, it isn't. So we should not oversimplify our system. And the last comment, minimizing risks, this is a good thing, but this should be a very short-term strategy, because we should think more about fixing certain risks and to optimize them so that we can raise the quality of education. So from the next year we can start thinking about this. Yes. I would like to explain about the formula of distribution of funds. This very fast decision made for calculation. We need time. We were ready to consider many versions. We calculated by many approaches. In this case, we proceed from the fact that we should minimize risks not to damage the system. The budgeting process is now ongoing in the parliament, and at the moment we are ready to calculate the model. We are absolutely open in this issue. I'd like to add, with the Ministry of Finance we now cooperate. They as if agree with us, but we are talking about inclusive education. The money should be allocated for children in target money. So money is a tool. If we have the educational policy, it should be reflected in funding and to promote the direction in which it should develop. If we do not fund the development, it will not develop. As concerns boarding schools and children with special needs, the Ministry of Finance is ready to consider the allocation of special subvention for children with special needs, about 200 millions. This would be targeted subvention for children with special needs. This is our decision we propose. I agree there are methodological and conceptual problems how to build the new system. In this aspect, I would like to advise the Ministry of Finance to see the Ministry of Education not only as the recipient of funds, but also as a research institution capable and which should develop such methodologies and calculations. So what about the discussions? Listen, the tasks for modeling, for mathematical simulation, they could be resolved even by university students at physics and mathematics departments. We should have data. Here we have such special feature, and I am concerned about this. We are the last country in the Europe which model on the basis of 2015 data in where migration tabulation is high in our country. We have the war and instability. We can't do so. We should develop databases which collect information. The analysis is not hard to make. Well, it is complicated. We should have some knowledge, but the graduates, university graduates, can provide analysis services if data is in place. Yes, we work together with the Ministry of Finance. If you don't like our formula, really, we work with the Ukrainian-Swedish project. There is an expert there also from Poland. There is a lack of database and very short time. This is also a problem. The idea appeared at the end of summer. And one more thing, the cases, sometimes it is good to look at best cases in other countries, sometimes it is not good. So where we see successful countries, best cases upon optimization, the optimization was addressed with their long-term plans. For example, in Portugal, there are 3,200 schools. They were reduced to 500 high-quality schools and with high level of access. We do not have political stability in our governments, and the matter of education is not top priority. If it is priority, then the government shuffles will not have much influence. So we can see for in the long run, not in the short run, and having less dissonance. I have a question. It is very painful question. There is a formula. This is national budget and 4 pages of formula calculation. The formula, it seems to me in Ukraine, there are much money for funding the educational sector, but they are spent in an efficient manner. Pavlo said one thing we should see when we calculate any budget. This is a school child, so educational services standard per one pupil, not only databases but very protected databases of children of school age and higher school age in order to calculate what the state should pay per each pupil, per each citizens, in other words. So when we come to thousands of schools where certain amounts of pupils study, we don't understand how today in 2017 budget subventions will be launched only for teachers' salaries, while maintenance of schools shall be paid by local authorities. How do you correlate the relative number of pupils and relative number of teachers which we have, if in Ukraine we have 7.9 pupils fall per one teacher? This is the lowest European indicator. So direct monetization of state standard, this is an idea which for 2018 the Ministry of Finance should develop. First, we do not agree it should be Ministry of Finance not to agree, but we at the Ministry of Education do not agree with the standard. If we calculate the standard, we will not be able to pay it from the budget. When we talk, we do not discuss the amount for educational subvention. We discuss rules, how we distribute it, how this distribution of the funds which the state can allocate, whether it would be justified. In Poland, they also demanded standard. Then the court will demand so that you ensure the standard, so that you provide the standard. To the standard we should try to approach, but we live in reality as concerns a school child. The state is responsible for a child in any region, even in low number schools, in some islands, for example, or forested lands. We should provide not the standard per pupil, but we should also take account of the context. In the previous formula, we also had the factor for the number of pupils in the schools. Half of schools will be just closed. I would like to add that I don't agree that we have enough money to fund if we use everything in an efficient manner. How much money fall on one school child? If we look at this, in 2014 there was half of Bulgarian level and 3-4-fold less than in Baltic countries and 10 times less money than in developed European countries. When GDP disappeared, we do not have 5-7%. How to change situation in 2018-2020 in the long run? Of course, we thought about this matter, but this is about mid-term forecasting and budgeting. This is the stone which we should, the main task which we should address. So that the Ministry of Finance plan activities not for 1 year but for 3 years. Civilized countries now already talk about 2020-2021. For 2017 they have all indicators already defined. As the Ministry of Finance, if we manage to do this, there should be some mental breakdown of the entire system, because looking into the current situation we lose the long-term perspective. So in 2017 budget we should have additions for 2018-2019. They are of technical nature. This is not interesting for anyone, even for linear ministries. This is tradition in Ukraine that we should address current problems, because year ahead there will be another persons in power. So planning. So far we should train linear ministries to think in the long run. There was a question of textbooks. This is a current ongoing problem. It should be addressed at the technical level, but talking about prospects, in GDP we pay much for defense and less for education. We should describe about and discuss big figures with our parliamentarians, not the tariff schedule. This is technical tools. This is not that level of discussion. Talking about 2020, we should think about 20 billion plans where the education sector can progress. So maybe we shall take this money and send them for infrastructure or medical sector. As the Ministry of Finance, we will do the best to launch tools of midterm planning. Thank you to everyone. Thank you for your participation.